All it took was a bases-clearing, game-winning double for Mark Vientos to remind us all how much he can help this lineup.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. This is the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, through the first 7 innings of the Mets game on Friday night against the Royals, it was yet another exercise in futility for the Mets offense. In the third inning, they scored their lone run, a bases-loaded walk by Pete Alonso. And Mark Vientos came up after that, and he struck out on 3 pitches. And that third one was a foul tip into the catcher's glove on a fastball that was a little bit up in the zone, but basically down the middle. And Vientos swings through it. He takes his bat, and he swings it like an axe into the ground as hard as he can and snaps it at the handle. Just showing the frustration of what has been a brutal season for Mark Vientos. 5 innings later, Pete Alonso would strike out the bases loaded. And he took his bat and snapped it over his knee. I will say the knee snap that Pete Alonso does, that's pro. Okay, he's been in the big leagues for a long time. He knows how to do it. Nothing wrong with slamming it to the ground, but something more effective about the good snap over the knee. And that's the same frustration that I'm sure a lot of guys are feeling in that dugout, and that I'm sure the fan base absolutely was feeling as look, the Mets were going to lose the game. Because in between the 2 bat breaks that were self-inflicted, the Mets, across those 4 innings, did nothing offensively. They were retired in order in the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th inning. In the 7th inning, Ronnie Mauricio drew a 1-out walk before Brett Beatty struck out. I will say, horrible call on the strike 3 against Beatty. The umpire was brutal, but you can't use that as an excuse. Granted, we've been seeing a lot of awful umpiring this season, particularly lately. But again, you got to do something about it. You got to swing the bat. If they're not going to call those close pitches your way, then you got to take the bat off your shoulder and do something. And the Mets weren't through the first 7 innings. Meanwhile, we'll talk about the pitching later, but Kodai Senga was great through 4. Alex Carrillo did a really nice job for 2 innings. The Royals got 1 run in the 6th inning on what I think was a real misplay by Brandon Nimmo out in left field. You had Salvador Perez on first base. Granted, with 2 outs, he was going on contact, but he was not going to score, and Nimmo has to play the ball in front of him. Instead, he tries to slide and make a spectacular catch. It gets past him, and that allows Salvi to come around to score and tie the game. But you're not going to win a lot of games 1-0, and you're certainly not going to win trailing 3-1 because in the next inning, Huascar Brazaban served up a pitch on a tee for Bobby Witt Jr., who does what superstars do, or does what superstars does. I don't know how I should have said that. Regardless, Bobby Witt Jr. did his thing, hit a 2-run homer, and the Mets were trailing 3-1, and it felt like the game was over because, again, this lineup was just brutal through the first 7 innings. But you got to credit Brandon Nimmo for making up for his mistake in the field and for igniting the offense in the 8th inning. I don't want this at bat to go under the radar because Brandon Nimmo took things into his own hands. The umpire, first pitch he sees, thinks it's a ball, borderline, but I think it probably should have been called a ball. Regardless, it was a strike. So he was in a 1-0 hole. And what does Brandon Nimmo do next? There's a cutter in on his hands, and he knows it's a ball, and he swings at it. And I almost feel like he looked back at the umpire, and he said a few words. Was that a strike? That type of thing, where it was just like, all right, I got to swing the bat. The third pitch was up and away. It was so far out of the zone that he knew, okay, they're not going to call that a strike. The next pitch was a slider that was low, but it did get played. I mean, it was a foot below the zone at least. But Brandon Nimmo did not leave it to chance. He did not leave it to the umpire to ring him up on a pitch that was a foot at least below the zone, if not a foot and a half below the zone. No. He said, yeah, I'm swinging. He ripped the ball through the infield, 108 miles per hour off the bat, got a rally going. I was so impressed with that at bat, and I love that mentality, and other guys got to do that. If an umpire is giving you a horrible strike zone, learn the zone and adjust. There's no ABS system yet. You can't just tap your head like you might be able to next year and call out the umpire for being an idiot. and having, no feel for the zone. It's his zone still. It's the umpire zone. If it's a bad zone, you got to adjust. So I love that at bat from Nimmo to get that hit. Then you have Francisco Lindor draws a walk. Juan Soto draws a walk. Bases are loaded for Pete Alonso. As I mentioned, he strikes out. The Royals have brought in their closer, Carlos Estevez. I might talk about next week. We'll see if the Royals are still in the race. He is one of those arms that's on the bubble to get traded because he has had a really good season. The Royals are one of those teams where you don't know which way they're going to go. Might be a guy that we can talk about on a trade show next week. But regardless, Estevez, which actually would be pretty funny if the Mets got Estevez considering some of the hits they've gotten off in the last couple of years. Probably not the best name. I'm actually still working on my list right now for a show, so that's why it's fresh on the mind. But regardless, Estevez strikes out Pete, like I mentioned, snaps the bat, and here comes Mark Vientos. And Vientos was the first 4 pitches of his at-bat. 2 of them called for strikes, 2 of them balls, and those strikes were in the zone, pitches that he should have swung at. But here's Mark Vientos, 2-2 count, got to do something. Gets a slider on the outer half, goes with it, rips a line drive into right center field, 107 or 108 miles an hour off the bat. It clears the bases, and the Mets go from trailing 3-1 to winning 4-3, and Mark Vientos can sigh the biggest relief maybe of his life as he finally came through, and it feels like there's been that weighted backpack he's been playing with all season. He was able to just release the straps and let it go and be Mark Vientos again. At least that's what we hope. But that was such a massive hit for Mark Vientos because obviously the Mets win the game because of it. But what it could mean moving forward, which we'll talk about more in the next segment. Reed Garrett works a quick 1-2-3 8th inning, and that brings up the Mets again for a chance to add on, and they did. Tyrone Taylor sets the table, rips a double into the left field corner. Brandon Nimmo draws a walk. Then Francisco Lindor breaks the game wide open, hits his 19th home run of the season, a 3-run shot. Juan Soto goes back-to-back with his 22nd of the season. Suddenly, the Mets have 8 runs on as many hits, and they're able to avoid using Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning. Chris Davinsky comes in and closes it out for the Mets. Huge win, very similar to the one that started off this week in Baltimore, where the Mets went quiet for most of the game and then exploded late. Hopefully this time there's no rain that washes away the middle game of a series and turns it into a doubleheader. We'll knock on wood. We'll hope that there's a clear forecast in Kansas City. And if there is, maybe the Mets can build off of this and finish off this first half with a really nice series. But a huge win for this team and an even bigger hit for Mark Vientos. Should the Mets just make him the everyday DH? I want to talk about that more here in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. Mark Vientos has obviously had a brutal season by his standards. It has not been a good year. It's been very similar to the statistics he put up in 2023, where we really weren't sure if Mark Vientos was going to figure it out with the New York Mets. It was very much up in the air. But he has been showing some signs, of the stats won't indicate it, but I've talked about individual at-bats for the past couple weeks on the show since he came off the IL of, okay, well, in this at-bat, Mark Vientos, saw the right pitches that are out of the zone, got into a hitter's count. He swung at the right pitches, but he hammered one into the ground. Or, he got just under it. Launch angle of 36 degrees instead of a launch angle of 32 degrees meant a fly out instead of a home run. Just missing. The results have not been there, but I have been encouraged by the at-bats, and I've been talking about it on the show and just waiting to see, would it ever happen? First game of the doubleheader yesterday, comes off the bench for Jesse Winker. Nearly hits a home run, rips a double, gets a base hit. It's like, all right, that's him. He's going to come back. This is finally the Mark Vientos we've been waiting for. And then he goes 0 for 4 in the second game with a couple of strikeouts. And then it's hard to continue to advocate and be like, oh, yeah, Vientos is the guy. But when Winker went down, it was pretty clear, all right, Mark Vientos, there's no one else to take DH at bats. You have Ronnie Mauricio playing great defense right now. Seriously, he's been so good at third base. I mean, you got two guys now with Beatty and Mauricio who are just giving you awesome defense. It's going to be interesting to see how that whole situation works itself out as we get closer and closer to the deadline. They just play both of these guys, who knows? But when it comes to Vientos, if there's no Marte, there's no Winker, all right, just play Vientos. I don't want to see Jared Young get a single at bat. I really don't. Unless he's pinch hitting for Tyrone Taylor or Luis Torrens. I don't want to see Jared Young get in the game. But if you missed it, Jared Young replaced Jesse Winker on the roster. Winker, back injury. They said it's inflammation. He's on some type of medication now for a couple days. They'll see if he needs an injection. Sounds like it's not too serious, but also doesn't sound like he's going to be back right at the other end of the break like Starling Marte is going to be. And with that said, I'd almost said the same thing about Marte. Did he swing the bat better? Absolutely. Was he doing well before he went down with the knee injury? Sure. But he's a 36-year-old singles hitter with bad knees. Mark Vientos, let's not forget who this guy was. It's been the pinned tweet on my Twitter account for over a year. Mark Vientos is the truth. I never got rid of it. And I bumped it tonight when he hit that double and said, hey, I've never lost hope. I'm always trying to believe in Vientos because this is a guy that has power, that is special. And let's not forget, it wasn't 3 years ago. It wasn't 5 years ago. It wasn't hoping on, Starling Marte to turn back the clock to being an all-star in 2022. No, it was last year that Mark Vientos hit 27 home runs in 111 games. 27 big league home runs. Not, oh, he hit 27 in the minors. He's done that before. But no, 27 home runs in 111 big league games. And then went against the best pitchers in baseball in the playoffs, became the Mets two-hole hitter, and was giving, security in the line, protection in the line to Francisco Lindor for a playoff run, hitting 327 with a 362 on base and a 636 slug, 5 home runs, 14 RBIs. This is the same guy who in October of last year in a playoff game in Dodger Stadium with the Mets trailing 1-0 in the series, desperately needing to even things up, who took it personally when Francisco Lindor was intentionally walked to load the bases in front of him with 2 outs. And he hit a grand slam. That guy. This isn't years ago. This was within a year ago. This guy was doing it. We ranked him at Just Baseball as a top 10 third baseman in the game going into this year. That's how much hype was surrounding Vientos. He homered 3 times in the NLCS. 3 times. Drove in 7 runs in the NLCS. If the Mets win the NLCS, Mark Vientos might have an NLCS MVP on his resume right now. That's how good he was. And so now, as you're looking at this deadline, and I think I'm going to re-record the show. You'll hear it when I'm talking on the starting pitcher episode because I'm doing all these shows in advance. I'm out of town next week, but I'm going to give you guys a full week of trade deadline primers. And I did a show that feels obsolete now 3 days ago, wherever I pre-recorded it, because all of a sudden it feels like Jarren Durant's more available in trades. Also, Jesse Winker goes down, and now Mark Vientos gets a huge hit. Now I feel like I got to do the entire show over again. I'm going to listen to it after I record as I'm trying to get this one up, and I'm going to figure out if I got to hit record and run it back because I think some of my opinions have changed. It's not just because of one swing. It's more of the Winker injury that probably plays a bigger role in that episode. But I also can't quit Mark Vientos. And here I've been over the last couple of days and weeks sort of kicking around the idea in my head of Mark Vientos getting traded. And the idea that Mark Vientos is maybe the perfect piece to send to the Diamondbacks where you can get Eugenio Suarez, his replacement, for a year because he's a rental, and maybe get a top pitcher as well. Maybe you can pull a Merrill Kelly or a Zach Gallen or a reliever and use Vientos and the value that he built up last year in 4.5 years of team control and not give up prospects at the deadline. Or, I think they'll still give up some prospects, but not give up as many. And I'm kicking around this idea and I can't commit to it. I've thought about writing the article for Just Baseball for over a week now. And I can't bring myself to do it because I don't really want to see Mark Vientos get traded. Because to me, he's the one guy of all these young players that's done it, and you just can't ignore that. You can't just flush it and say, oh, he sucked for 2 months, so it's not in there. It was just there. It was just in there. And he's had a bad season, I get it, but Brett Baty has never sustained offensive success. Lately, he's been good, but good for Baty has been, all right, he's shown us he can be maybe a league average bat or a little bit better while being a great defender. That's still potentially a starter at third base, but that's not a middle of the order a bat. Ronnie Mauricio has shown us some nice things. I mean, it's been a month, if that. Sure, he's shown flashes. He's an exciting player. He hasn't hit 27 home runs in 111 games. He hasn't done that. He hasn't played in a playoff game, batting second, and been the guy that comes through when all eyes are watching him. That's Mark Vientos. And you look at this year's Mets team and you look at the potential options. Maybe these injuries to Marte and Winker allowed us to see the forest from the trees and to see that maybe a DH platoon doesn't work because we've been watching DH platoons, be put together and fail year after year after year. Was it 2022 when Vogelback came in with the Darren Ruff platoon? I think it was. And then I was like, oh, Ruff's not hitting. Let's try to put Vientos and platoon him with Daniel Vogelback and see how that works. Vogie was great that year. Was the DH spot good? No, because half of it wasn't. Starling Marte was good this year. Was the DH platoon working for the Mets? No, because more than half of it wasn't, because the left-handed side was unresolved with Winker out. And yeah, I can get the merit of it. I've campaigned for it. I've talked about, if Jesse Winker and Starling Marte combined for a 760 OPS, that's not a bad DH. Well, how about Mark Vientos just for the rest of the season puts up the 840 OPS he's capable of, and in the second half and in 65 games, he blasts 15 home runs. How about that? How about that happens? How about Starling Marte just doesn't play much? Or when he does play, it's because Mark Vientos is at third base and Marte is DHing because Vientos has hit well enough that you're comfortable doing that. But honestly, especially now with Winker out and Marte dealing with the knee thing, just play Vientos and see what happens. And hopefully this is the game that can spark him. And this is the game that can give him some confidence. Ron Darling said it on the broadcast. He said, this is the first time that Mark Vientos is going to go to sleep easy in months. And who knows what that does for a guy. But I think he's happy that it's not a night game on Saturday and he gets to go back into the lineup, and they better play him. They better DH Vientos this next 2 games at the bare minimum, because I think we could see, a Mark Vientos 3-for-4 game where everything's a line drive and he's just back. And if you get Swaggy V back to being himself, this lineup is so much more dangerous. And your deadline gets so much clearer because it's not, okay, where do we add? Do we add at third? Do we add at second? Do we add at center? Or where do we add? Well, now maybe it's all right. Well, okay, the DH spot solidified. Maybe it's, let's just get a center fielder and slide Jeff McNeil back into the infield. And then Mauricio and Baty can battle it out at third base. Could be that simple. It can really change a lot if you just know, hey, Mark Vientos, we're just going to forget about what happened. He's the guy that we thought he was going to be. It'd be so huge for this team. It's one game. It doesn't mean that's going to happen for sure, but that's a big hit. And that's a big confidence boost for a guy that maybe just needed that. Maybe just needed to win a game, come through for his team, and it quiets all the noise and he gets back to being the hitter that we all know he can be. I hope so. I really do. Final segment today, though, I want to talk about the headline going into the game, which was Kodai Senga's return. He looked great on the mound, so I want to talk about what he did out there, and I'll also give you another, little bit of an update on the Mets bullpen. So we'll go through all that here to close out the show in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to the ballpark to check out a game with your friends or family? That's exactly where Game Time comes in, because it's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple, and prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. It's got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. For me, when I'm going to a game, I am not getting my tickets until I'm pretty much in the security line. That's when I'm looking at my phone, looking at the Game Time app, and finding the best possible seats. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easier to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game, whether that's the Mets and the Royals over this weekend, or if you're in the New York area, of course, Mets versus Reds out of the break, where you can maybe check out some of the festivities surrounding David Wright and his jersey retirement next Saturday. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime, take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways, or get the line graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. So Kodai Senga returned to the mound having missed just 1 month, which deserves mentioning. It's pretty impressive that he came back in a month. I think all of us were expecting a lot longer of a layoff for Senga. Instead, just missed a month where the Mets played some brutal baseball, and maybe his return can spark them into playing much better baseball from this point forward. Senga had a little bit of a rough first inning, but then he reminded you how good he can be, because it was base hit, double by Bobby Witt. You got 2 runners in scoring position, nobody out, and you're thinking, all right, how's Senga going to wiggle his way out of this one? Stays calm, strikes out Vinny Pasquantino, and then he gets a soft liner hit back at him, and he made a great play. I mean, even when I say soft, it was 78 miles per hour off the bat. 78 coming right back at you when you're not expecting it. Still not easy to handle, but he makes a great catch, tries to double off the run at third, makes an errant throw. Ronnie Mauricio does a great job, and I say that sarcastically, of accidentally stepping entirely on Jonathan India's hand, and the ball goes into foul territory, and India just is in incredible pain because it was a 6'5" dude who just completely put all of his weight on his hand. I'm surprised he stayed in that game. And he was unable to score on the play. And then Senga was able to strike out Salvador Perez to escape. I know Jonathan India's dad's a big Mets fan. I have no idea if he's a Locked On Mets fan, but I do wonder how he processes these games, and particularly a moment like that. He's got to be feeling for his son getting his hand stepped on, but is he kind of happy that he doesn't score? I don't know. I can't put myself in Jonathan India's father's mind. I would expect he's maybe rooting for India, but I don't know. It kind of sounds like he's probably rooting for the Mets to win that game. Regardless, second inning, after he was able to escape with those 2 strikeouts, Senga issues a pair of 2-out walks that could have come back to bite him, but Ronnie Mauricio makes a great play, hard hit ball, sliding backhanded stop, comes up firing, strong throw, fancy footwork by Pete Alonso to adjust himself to the back of the bag to make that catch, and the Mets get out of that inning. Third inning again, Senga gives up a pair of singles, but he got a ground out, then it was a single, then it was another ground out, then another single, put runners at first and third with 2 outs for the rookie Jack Caglione, and he made him look every bit the rookie. First pitch, Senga throws him a ghost fork, and it was nowhere near the zone, and he got the chase, and once he got that, you just knew, all right, he's got Cags in his back pocket. He's just going to keep flipping up ghost forks and let him get himself out. That's exactly what happened. Threw one of the dirt, got a swing. Threw another one where Cags was probably just yelling at himself in his head, don't swing, don't swing, don't swing. He's probably doing that again on the 4th pitch, but he could not check his swing, And Senga was able to get out of that inning. And then the fourth inning, finally had a 1-2-3 frame, picked up another strikeout, and that was the end of his day. 67 pitches for Kodai Senga, 42 strikes. Ball was coming out of his hands great. I think he looks like he is ready for a very big second half here. 4 hits allowed, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, but did not give up a run. Lowered his ERA to 1.39, which would be all-star worthy, but he hasn't had enough starts. So he can't be an all-star. That's just why Jacob Misiorowski was named a replacement with 5 career starts. Are you kidding me, Major League Baseball? I mean, I've just been biting my lip a little bit or biting my tongue about David Peterson getting in and not trying to point out Christopher Sanchez has been a lot better. And I don't know, I guess because Christopher Sanchez is pitching on Sunday, he's not going to pitch in the All-Star game and they know that. But I mean, name him an All-Star and remove him over a guy 5 career starts, and there's going to be a million dudes on that roster. And this is me. I mean, I'm campaigning for a Philly right now, which I don't like to do, but I mean, come on. Like as someone that covers all 30 teams, just baseball, as the managing editor, I cannot let an injustice go unnoticed. And I mean, what are we doing? I get that Misiorowski is a budding superstar. Like he has absolutely disgusting stuff. He is, the next in line after what we saw from Paul Skeens last year. But I mean, come on, 5 careers. We can't wait for his second season to give him his first All-Star nod. We just have to give it to him right away. Brutal. And I'm pretty sure in some respect that makes him, with the new CBA, I have to look into it. They called him up late enough. I don't even know. That might even make him more expensive for the Brewers. Certainly does whenever he gets to arbitration. Regardless, it's just wild. Wild that Misiorowski got in when Senga, I wasn't even campaigning for Senga to be an All-Star because he missed a month. But he's got a 1.39 ERA and Jacob Misiorowski gets in. I really did not. Personally, I don't even want Senga there. Let Senga rest. We don't need Senga to be in the All-Star game. I'm fine with Kodai Senga not getting in. But Jacob Misiorowski, who the Mets tagged, by the way, I mean, the only runs he's given up this year basically been to the Mets. 5 of the 8 earned runs he's allowed in his first 5 starts to the Mets, and his only loss. But 2.81 ERA, and yep, we got to have him in the All-Star game. I digress on that. Regardless, though, really good start from Senga. And after that, you saw Alex Carrillo get another appearance, and you see this stuff. I mean, he's got great stuff. I don't know if he's going to be able to be a piece for this bullpen this year. We're right up against the trade deadline. Who knows if he can showcase enough that he doesn't get squeezed off of this roster at some point. But also, you obviously have the options on him, so he can be one of these guys shuttled up and down. And boy, does he have really good stuff. And it does seem like the Mets have found one here where next year Alex Carrillo should be a big part of this team. And there's every chance he's a big part of this team down the stretch. He allowed 2 hits on a run in the 6th inning, but in the 5th inning, he went through the top of the Royals lineup 1-2-3 with ease. 33 pitches, 24 strikes, didn't walk anybody. Yes, again, 2 hits, allows that run to score in the 6th. But if Brandon Nimmo stays back on that ball, that run probably doesn't come across the score. So I thought Carrillo was really good. Brazoban obviously did not give up the homer. Reed Garrett looked great. And then Devenski continues to shine. 2.16 ERA and 8 in the 3rd innings pitch. He's only walked 1, has only allowed 5 hits. So he's been really good. Another one of these guys that's been up and down on the taxi squad. But maybe he'll stick. I don't know. I kind of like him. He's a pretty solid arm so far. And the bullpen's only going to get better. Brooks Raley, we do know the plan with him. He's going to pitch on Saturday and Sunday, first back-to-backs. And once he has that final box checked off, he will return in the second half. So it seems like Brooks Raley will be activated, barring something over the weekend. He'll be good to go. That's going to really help this bullpen because Raley's been lights out on rehab, and we saw what he could do in the previous 2 years, and particularly 2023. But last year, didn't give a run before he went down needing Tommy John. So that all of a sudden could be your 8th inning guy, but more importantly, your high leverage lefty reliever. You still got Diaz. You got Reed Garrett. Jose Budo is out with an illness. I think he should be good to go coming out of the break. So that's 2 big arms that you put into this bullpen. Obviously, there's been a lot of up and down when it comes to Ryan Stanek and certainly Huascar Brazoban lately. But that does give you 6 arms you feel pretty good about. Carrillo could be the 7th, and the Mets might need a long man in that bullpen with, Kodai Senga potentially needing some bullpen games or spot starts down the stretch. But this bullpen's getting a lot more full. Granted, they still need to go out and get a big arm, but I don't think they have to get multiple arms. And I don't even necessarily think that arm has to be left-handed, but I'll save that for another show next week, as I'll be breaking down everything that you could want to know about who's going to be available at the deadline and which players the New York Mets should target. To close out this series, you got Frankie Montas going today, going up against, who is it again? Is it Bubic? I can't recall. I know Noah Cameron's going in the final game, the rookie. Oh no, it's Michael Lorenzen. I knew it before I looked on the page. Yeah, it's Michael Lorenzen. So Lorenzen with his 4.61 ERA going up against Montas, and then Sunday it'll be Clay Holmes getting the start versus Noah Cameron, and Sean Manaea is expected to piggyback that start and pitch out of the bullpen. Also worth noting, the Phillies lost their first game in their series against the Padres in San Diego, so the Mets are suddenly a half a game back. They handle business, win these next two games, and the Padres win a series. The New York Mets could still end up going to the break as the first place team, the sole first place team in the National League East. We'll see what they can do with these final two in Kansas City, but definitely a great first one. I'll be breaking down the game on tomorrow's show, and then we will do a live stream as well on Sunday to break down the final game of the series. And then again, all next week, your deadline spectacular. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen, your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 streaming show that covers everything in the world of sports with all of our local experts and our league-wide experts. Check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube.